Dame Helen Mirren is 80 years old and has nothing left to prove or conceal. The renowned actress, whose career has been characterized by genius, tenacity, and unreserved honesty, has now spoken up. Mirren has made a daring and surprising admission. She's listed the 5 guys she detested the most throughout her career and life. These are profoundly personal realities fashioned by grief, betrayal, and manipulation in a field that often penalizes honesty. They're not trivial grievances or transient annoyances. She kept quiet for decades because she was afraid and professional. Now, however, she talks. This is Helen Mirren uncensored, finally revealing to the public what it was never supposed to hear, from influential producers to personal heartbreaks. Helen Mirren. One of the most illustrious and versatile actors of her time, Dame Helen Mirren is renowned for her powerful performances on stage, screen, and television. Mirren, born in London, England on July 26, 1945, received her training at the Royal Shakespeare Company, where she soon garnered praise for her stirring performances of traditional roles. Throughout her 5-decade career, she's demonstrated a courageous devotion to her art, a commanding presence on film, and an unwavering commitment to honesty. Her depiction of Queen Elizabeth II in The Queen in 2006, for which Mirren won the Academy Award for Best Actress, is perhaps her most well-known performance outside. But she's considerably more than just royalty. Mirren has continuously resisted typecasting, from gripping dramas like The Madness of King George to action blockbusters like Red and poignant biographical depictions of Elizabeth I. She is one of the few actors to win the Triple Crown of Acting, which consists of an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Tony. Dame Helen Mirren remains an influential figure in the arts, respected for her skill as well as her bravery in speaking the truth in a field that often silences others. She's renowned for her expertise, poise, and unwavering integrity. I only regret not saying it sooner. Helen Mirren famously said, "I don't regret hating them, I only regret not saying it sooner." This harsh, unnerving statement was the result of a lifetime of hard-won insight rather than resentment. It came from a lady who reached the pinnacles of international recognition, receiving praise and affection on both stage and television. However, there was a secret story behind the achievement, one that was molded by the manipulation, betrayal, and emotional wounds caused by individuals she had previously had complete faith in. These individuals were not far away. Instead, they were intimately involved in her career path, and their actions had a lasting impact on both her personal and creative life. Revealing the names. Now at 80, Dame Helen Mirren has spoken out with uncommon openness, free from the demands of public apology or career diplomacy. By doing this, she has not only voiced complaints but also shed light on the unseen pain that many people in the entertainment sector face. She listed 5 persons who, in her opinion, epitomized the misuse of authority, the suppression of the truth, and the structural flaws of a society long shielded by glitz and prestige. She said that these guys caused her the most suffering. Her disclosures are motivated by a commitment to integrity and responsibility rather than a desire for retaliation. They force us to wonder, why would a lady of her caliber speak at this time? What realities have been concealed by decades of silence? The first person she disclosed was none other than Harvey Weinstein, who many now consider to be the darkest monster in Hollywood history. Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein was one of Hollywood's most prominent and influential people for many years. He produced and distributed highly acclaimed films including Pulp Fiction, Shakespeare in Love, The English Patient, and Good Will Hunting, as a co-founder of Miramax and the Weinstein Company, contributing to the development of the contemporary independent cinema movement. Weinstein was known as a kingmaker due to his ability to spot talent and craft a compelling narrative. But underlying the honors and recognition was a dark legacy that would eventually lead to his precipitous decline and provoke a cultural introspection that affected many different sectors. A fallen mogul and the catalyst of a movement. The New York Times and The New Yorker released investigative reports in October 2017 that claimed Weinstein had sexually harassed, assaulted, and coerced several women over the decades. Testimonies from actresses, assistants, and other professionals in the business were included in the papers, detailing abuse practices that lasted for more than 30 years. The claims ranged from severe charges of rape to offensive remarks and unwelcome approaches. Stories of abrupt requests for massages or nudity, invites to hotel rooms on pretenses, and the implicit threat that their employment hinged on their compliance were all hauntingly similar. The public accusations. More than 80 women finally came forward as a result of the discoveries, which sparked a wave of public allegations. Famous actresses including Selma Hayek, Lupita Nyong'o, Gwyneth Paltrow, Rose McGowan, and Ashley Judd were among them. Their bravery contributed to the breakdown of the culture of silence that allowed Weinstein to act without consequence. The growing number of testimonies sparked the worldwide Me Too movement, which encouraged institutions to address power abuse and gave survivors of sexual assault across professions a voice. Trails and lawsuit. Weinstein was kicked out of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences and fired from the Weinstein Company. He was given a 23-year jail term after being found guilty in a New York court in 2020 of third-degree rape and first-degree criminal sexual conduct. After a second trial in Los Angeles in 2022, he was found guilty once again of rape and sexual assault and given a further 16-year term. Weinstein's demise was a unique case of a very influential person in the entertainment industry being prosecuted for sexual assault. Accountability and awakening. Weinstein's situation is significant for reasons that go far beyond a single person. It exposed how organizations, including public relations agencies, legal teams, movie studios, and even some journalists, may shield offenders at the price of victims. Weinstein was able to act without fear of repercussions because non-disclosure agreements, monetary settlements, and threats to his career of long-stifled accusations. His story came to represent the structural flaws in Hollywood and other sectors where power is concentrated and unchallenged. Harvey Weinstein is still a symbol of responsibility and awakening, in addition to abuse and deception. Although his acts destroyed lives, their revelation gave many others the strength to call for justice, openness, and change. Even if the fight for workplace safety and fairness continues, Weinstein's downfall marked a significant turning point in contemporary cultural history, compelling everyone to pay attention and ultimately take action. The monster in the casting room. Not all people born into royalty get to live like them. Helen Mirren, whose name has long been linked to royal grace, a formidable mind, and one of the most illustrious acting careers in contemporary history, did not achieve success by chance. Her ascent was the consequence of unwavering will, hard-won tenacity, and the capacity to negotiate a perilous business that was sometimes indifferent, if not hostile, to women's dignity, rather than aristocratic comfort. Helen Lydia Mironoff was born into a working-class English family of Russian heritage. She started her career on small stages, where survival was seldom guaranteed by ability and determination alone. Her father admonished her earlier in her career not to pursue an entertainment career, calling Hollywood a filthy place for bad girls. His harsh remarks were a reflection of a reality Helen would get to know all too well. She would eventually discover that an atmosphere based on power disparities and backroom exploitation often outmatched intelligence, attractiveness, and professionalism. Intelligent and instinctively independent. Intensely brilliant and naturally self-reliant, Helen Mirren made her way up the ladder. She broke stereotypes with every part, alternating between Shakespearean theater and contemporary film, until she eventually took the stage with a Golden Oscar. However, the public seldom saw the cost of that climb. Behind the glitter of red carpets and the cheers of packed theaters lay a world of compulsion, deceit, and agonizing concessions. She's now said that there were times when the strain of that voyage almost broke her. She spoke of spending nights alone herself in a hotel room, crying after being forced into situations she had never consented to. She recalled instances in which authority and confidence were abused to obscure moral and professional boundaries. In one such case, she was forced to shoot a nude sequence that was not initially included in the contract by a director. The setting, the scenario, the room, all of them turned into a place of silent violation where resistance endangered not only her career but also her reputation. Channeling pain into power. Helen, however, did not back down. Instead of giving up on her art or succumbing to hopelessness, she turned her suffering into strength. Her performances became bolder, more nuanced, and sharper. The edge of a woman who had persevered, resisted, and eventually survived was often present in her character. She once said that she never considered herself a princess, but rather a warrior, one who had fought her way through a brightly lit battlefield where the predators were dressed in fitted suits and brandished scripts rather than swords. At 80 years old, Helen Mirren has started talking candidly about those years after being freed from the demands of business loyalty and diplomacy. For reckoning, not retaliation. By doing this, she's exposed the harsh reality that lies underneath Hollywood's glossy facade. She accused 5 individuals of betraying her, abusing her position of authority, and manipulating her system to inflict her long-term damage. She started by revealing Harvey Weinstein, a name that's come to represent Hollywood's worst period. Her memory of him is terrifying. His eyes were so utterly devoid of humanity that she never forgot them, not because they expressed yearning. She said they were empty, like a cavern made to swallow women's souls. She was invited in to try out for what she saw as a pivotal part, an opportunity to advance in her profession. Instead, she entered a room where Weinstein was slumped in a chair, holding a glass of wine in his hand, his manner tinged with arrogance and entitlement. Talent alone isn't enough. "Helen, you have talent," he said. "However, skill is insufficient on its own. You must be adaptable." The implication was clear. The repercussions were immediate when she refused. The role vanished. No one answered the calls from her agency. Suddenly, as if cursed by a single refusal to cooperate, the doors of opportunity that had been open were shut. In addition to being excluded from the position, Helen suffered consequences for expressing her independence. When she thought back on that incident, years later, she was aware that her hate of Weinstein extended beyond the things he had done to her personally. She was more deeply resentful of the systematic harm he had caused to hundreds of women, including producers, assistants, and aspiring actors, many of whom were too scared to come out until decades later. According to her, Harvey Weinstein represented a system that was intended to suppress, oppress, and dump women rather than just being an abuser. He catalyzed Helen Mirren's rekindling of a long-suppressed rage. Speaking his name was the first blow in a long overdue reckoning, not merely a show of defiance. Liam Neeson. One of the most renowned and lasting performers of his age is Liam Neeson. The Northern Irish actor has enthralled viewers with his imposing on-screen presence, rich vocals, and exceptional range throughout a career spanning over 40 years. Neeson has consistently demonstrated a unique ability to combine emotional depth with physical force in everything from highly regarded historical epics to action thrillers that have consistently broken box office records. Raised in a Roman Catholic home, William John Neeson was born in Ballymena, Northern Ireland on June 7, 1952. Before pursuing acting, he first boxed and taught. He started his acting career in the 1970s at Belfast's Lyric Players Theatre before moving to Dublin to work at the renowned Abbey Theatre. In his early cinematic performances, he established himself as a dependable and considerate supporting actor in films such as Excalibur in 1981, The Bounty in 1984, and The Mission in 1986. A career of gravitas, reinvention, and personal complexity. However, it was Schindler's List in 1993, directed by Steven Spielberg, that catapulted Neeson into global celebrity status. He received considerable praise and an Academy Award nomination for his depiction of German entrepreneur Oskar Schindler, who rescued more than 1,000 Jews during the Holocaust. The part demonstrated Neeson's ability to depict moral complexity, quality that would characterize a lot of his subsequent work. Neeson played several complex parts in movies, including Michael Collins in 1996, Les Miserables in 1998, and Kinsey in 2004, throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s. Along with lending gravity to popular franchises, he voiced Aslan in The Chronicles of Narnia and played Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn in Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace in 1999. Redefining his career. With the release of Taken, an action thriller that became an unexpected smash and catapulted Neeson into the spotlight as an action hero in his mid-50s, he abruptly changed the course of his career in 2008. Due to Taken's popularity, he was cast in several action-packed movies, including Unknown in 2011, The Grey in 2012, Non-Stop in 2014, and The Commuter in 2018. His portrayals of emotionally damaged but stoic heroes gave the genre a distinct dramatic weight. Off-screen, Neeson's life has been characterized by both success and sorrow. The tragic death of his wife, actress Natasha Richardson, in 2009, after a skiing accident, had a tremendous impact on him and intensified the emotional undertones in his subsequent roles. Neeson has given his public presence a humanizing touch by talking openly about pain and resiliency. His image has not been without controversy. His public persona hasn't been without criticism either. Neeson attracted criticism in 2019 after sharing a disturbing narrative about racism and retaliation from his background in an interview. Many people took issue with his comments, even though he meant to start a discussion on shame, remorse, and introspection. Later, Neeson apologized and explained his remarks, admitting the harm they had caused. Liam Neeson, a character characterized by complexity, metamorphosis, and lasting brilliance, is still a mainstay of modern film. His corpus of work demonstrates a dedication to his profession, a readiness to face painful realities, and a growing interest in the difficulties of celebrity and individual accountability. The most beautiful liar she ever loved. Some use daggers to betray. When asked to consider her relationship with actor Liam Neeson, whom she previously thought would be her lifelong partner, Dame Helen Mirren said, "You betrayed me with a smile." Beginning in the early 1980s, their relationship was characterized by passion and a shared creative heritage. The two seemed to be inseparable during the height of their careers. They were often seen together at backstage events and premieres, their looks revealing a great deal about their relationship. They were considered one of the most alluring couples in the entertainment business for a while. At one point, Helen herself said that she loved Neeson so much that she would have quit her job if he had asked her to. She had dreamed of a future with him, one based on lasting companionship, love, and shared aspiration. However, there were hints that the foundation was far less stable under the surface of what seemed to be a storybook relationship. Shattering her trust. Missed calls, inexplicable absences, and unprofessional business travels were all common. One quiet winter day in London dealt the death blow. When Helen unexpectedly arrived home, she saw Neeson with a considerably younger lady wearing the identical shirt Helen had ironed that morning, a moment that permanently damaged her faith. The simple act of betrayal was not only personal but also degrading. He didn't explain why, but said, "Helen, I'm sorry you had to find out this way." He didn't show regret for the actual deed. "He didn't kill me," she thought afterward. "However, he caused me to lose myself for 9 years." The emotional toll was not a short-lived heartache, but rather a profound, long-lasting injury that changed the way she saw vulnerability and love. Robert Redford. Many people consider Robert Redford to be one of the most famous actors in American cinema. His golden boy charm, profound creative sense, and unwavering support of independent film have established him as a cultural icon. Redford has had a profound influence as an actor, director, producer, and philanthropist throughout a career spanning over 60 years. His legacy is shaped not just by his on-screen personas, but also by his goal of revolutionizing the motion picture business. He was raised at a pivotal time in American history, having been born Charles Robert Redford Jr. in Santa Monica, California. On August 18, 1936, Redford briefly attended the University of Colorado before traveling to Europe and then to Brooklyn to study painting before pursuing a career in acting. In the late 1950s, he began working on stage and television before landing big-budget movie parts. The golden icon of Hollywood and the architect of independent cinema. His first major hit was Barefoot in the Park in 1967, in which he starred alongside Jane Fonda. However, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in 1969, in which Paul Newman also starred, was the picture that solidified his fame. The movie, which blended Redford's innate charisma and nuanced sensitivity, turned into a turning point in his career, with critically praised roles in The Sting in 1973, All the President's Men in 1976, The Way We Were in 1973, and 3 Days of the Condor in 1975. He maintained this momentum. Redford came to represent wise, morally upright individuals who handled moral difficulty with poise and fortitude. His transition into a director. Redford made a smooth move into directing in the 1980s, an incredible accomplishment for a first-time director. Ordinary People in 1980 took home 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. His subsequent works, such as A River Runs Through It in 1992, Quiz Show in 1994, and The Horse Whisperer in 1998, are distinguished by their cinematic grace, emotional depth, and insightful narrative. But Redford's support of independent filmmaking is among the most extraordinary lasting contributions to the industry. In honor of his well-known performance in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, he established the Sundance Institute in 1981. The Institute founded the Sundance Film Festival and has grown to be the most significant venue for independent filmmakers in the U.S. In addition to launching the careers of auteurs like Darren Aronofsky, Steven Soderbergh, and Quentin Tarantino, it altered the direction of American cinema toward more daring and varied narratives. Conservation and climate change. Redford has been a devoted political environmental activist outside of the movie industry. He's advocated for issues relating to Native American rights, climate change, and conservation. In 2016, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his humanitarian and creative contributions. Redford's public persona has been criticized despite his illustrious career. As noted in certain award speeches, there have been times when his charm concealed subtle disdain, especially in comments directed at women. However, these criticisms coexist with a wider admiration for his achievements and moral character. As an actor, filmmaker, and cultural influencer whose work continues to shape the film industry, Robert Redford remains a timeless representation of Hollywood's heyday. The Backstabber on live TV. 1995 was a busy year for the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, or BAFTA Awards. Dame Helen Mirren, whose name by then had come to represent excellence on stage and film, was one of the honorees of the evening. She received nominations for her outstanding work and was regarded as a serious candidate for the honor, as well as the acclaim she'd been accumulating over decades of steadfast dedication to her art. It was an occasion to commemorate her contribution to the art of performing and celebrate her accomplishments. She'd been introduced by the esteemed actor Robert Redford, who was highly renowned in the field. The crowd eagerly anticipated his comments, and his presence gave the event a sense of importance. The irreversible moment. Then came the words that would permanently tarnish the occasion. Nobody behaves in the same way as Helen Mirren. With a disarming grin, he said, "She always gives you the impression that middle-aged women can still be seductive." The audience burst into courteous laughter, some amused, other perhaps unaware of the implied meaning, but Helen just sat there, her lips contracted, and her spine straightened. The pain of the remark persisted even after the applause subsided. In that moment, she realized that the masquerade of praise was a more profound insult. Context and aim were what made a lasting impression, not the words per se. She was reduced to her age and looks at a moment intended to honor her creative abilities. The purposeful turning was what Helen was upset about, not a single remark. Redford's remarks devalued her at a moment when they ought to have encouraged her. It was a subtle betrayal, the type that hurts no one but sticks in your mind, a praise used as a weapon to undermine rather than to uplift. Peter Brook. One of the most significant and innovative theater directors of the 20th and early 21st centuries is Peter Brook. Brook, born on March 1, 1925 in London, spent over 70 years working to transform the vocabulary, organization, and essence of theater. Brook defied accepted theatrical conventions and influenced generations of artists worldwide with his daring Shakespearean interpretations, minimalist style, and deep faith in the universality of performance. He was regarded as a prodigy due to his early achievements with the Royal Shakespeare Company and in London's West End. His legacy, however, was characterized by his departure from conventional staging, most notably in his avant-garde 1970 production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. As outlined in his seminal 1968 book of the same name, Brook's idea of the space suggested that theater might take place anywhere, free of artifice, as long as it was rooted in interpersonal relationships. In Paris, Brook subsequently founded the International Center for Theater Research, where he led multicultural groups in avant-garde productions, including the Mahabharata. He's a legendary figure in the history of the performing arts worldwide, renowned for his unrelenting experimentation and profound spirituality, which reinterpreted theater as a medium for truth, investigation, and change rather than mere amusement. The mentor who used her as a shield. In addition to being Helen Mirren's mentor, Peter Brook was the one who found her, nurtured her early potential, and opened doors for her to enter the demanding and challenging world of classical theater. One of the most significant directors of the 20th century, Brook gained international recognition for his innovative stage design and imaginative Shakespearean adaptations. Working under him was a life-changing experience for a teenage Helen Mirren. She improved her discipline, gained a deeper understanding of performance, and secured a position in the prestigious Royal Shakespeare Company under his guidance. Tainted by scandal. However, that mentoring was later marred by controversy. A female performer who was part of the same theatrical community came out with serious accusations of backstage harassment, assault, and coercion. The charges led to official inquiries and a media frenzy. Helen was shocked by a public comment made by Peter Brook, who was under pressure to maintain his image. "Helen is the ideal example," he continued. "She and I have collaborated for many years. Nothing improper ever happened." He invoked her name as a living testament to his honesty with just one remark. A human shield. She was cast as a character witness, a human shield against scandal, in a play for which she had not tried out. His statements were taken at face value by the public and the industry. Her lack of response was seen as consent. "I wasn't selected to be his spokesperson," Helen subsequently acknowledged. "I felt compelled to be." She remained silent while he was alive out of concern for professional criticism. She didn't ultimately express her rage and disappointment until after Peter Brook's death. She said, "I hate him because he used me as his ticket out, not because he was a monster." For Helen, the betrayal was more than simply a personal one. It was the most basic kind of trust abuse. Mel Gibson. One of Hollywood's most complex and divisive personalities is Mel Gibson, a man whose outstanding creative accomplishments have often been overshadowed by private controversy and public criticism. Gibson, born in Peekskill, New York on January 3, 1956, and raised in Australia, gained worldwide recognition for his breakout performance in Mad Max in 1979 and later for the Lethal Weapon series. He established himself as a mainstay of action movies in the 1980s and 1990s because of his rugged charm and authoritative on-screen persona. Gibson received praise from critics for his work as a director in addition to his acting. His reputation as a master storyteller was cemented in 1995 when he co-starred in the Academy Award-winning picture Braveheart, which took home 5 awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Passion of the Christ in 2004 and Apocalypto in 2006, both renowned for their ferocity and unwavering vision, furthered his fame as a filmmaker. However, a string of legal troubles, anti-Semitic comments, and abusive conduct caught on widely shared recordings caused Gibson's reputation to plummet in the 2000s. Professional isolation and public censure were the results of these occurrences. Gibson, a gifted actor and director whose reputation is inextricably linked to both profoundly distressing problems and cinematic genius, remains a divisive figure today. The man who set fire to everything she stood for. Helen Mirren and Mel Gibson were never close. He wasn't a co-star, a valued coworker, or even a past boyfriend. In Hollywood, they seldom ever crossed paths. But in her view, he came to symbolize something far more sinister: the persistent decay at the core of a thriving enterprise. This organization often defends people who use celebrity as a weapon, condones violence, and celebrates indignation. By the middle of the 2000s, a string of very concerning events had become inexorably tied to Gibson's public image. From his anti-Semitic outbursts following a DUI arrest to the disclosure of tapes showing him using derogatory language and threatening his ex-partner, Gibson's actions demonstrated an unaccountable man. These actions, in Mirren's opinion, were not only personal shortcomings, but rather were signs of a larger cultural illness in Hollywood that normalized bigotry and silenced victims. In the interest of box office profits, they were willing to overlook brutality. She would not share a screen or a stage. Helen Mirren made it quite plain that she would never, ever share a stage or a screen with him. She didn't hesitate to leave, even when she was given a chance that may have changed her career. Her voice was firm as she said, "I don't want to act alongside a man who can yell at his girlfriend that she deserves to be raped by a pack of racial slur." Gibson had never hurt her personally, unlike the other guys she mentioned. Her animosity sprang from principles rather than personal betrayal. He represented to her the worst of Hollywood's structural flaws, including racism, sexism, misuse of authority, and the risky access of celebrity without responsibility. Helen Mirren, who's 80 years old, decided to break her silence by identifying him and 4 other people. Her stance was not one of retaliation. It was an appeal for moral clarity in a field that far too often loses sight of its humanity. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon